Hi, and welcome to this webcast series, which is brought to you by the Center on Knowledge Translation for Disability and Rehabilitation Research, or KTDRR, at the American Institutes for Research in partnership with the Campbell Collaboration. I'm your host, Ann Outlaw, and the Center on KTDRR is funded by the National Institute on Disability, Independent Living, and Rehabilitation Research, also known as NIDLR. This is a three-part webcast series which focuses on the methods for conducting systematic reviews. You can find more information about this webcast series, including a PDF of the slides and a text description, on our website, which is ktdrr.org. Today, we're joined by Vivian Welch, the newly appointed Editor-in-Chief of the Campbell Collaboration. Dr. Welch will be talking about how to fairly and equitably incorporate people with disabilities into systematic review planning. Hi, Vivian. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Anne. Great. So today I'd like to tell you a bit about the joint Campbell and Cochrane Equity Methods Group. And introduce its vision and mission. And secondly, tell you a bit about how to fairly and equitably incorporate people with disabilities into systematic review planning. And what I'd like to do is to give you some tools that we've developed in the equity group, which might be applicable also to the field of disability research. So the Campbell and Cochrane Equity Methods Group was registered in Campbell in about 2002, and you can find our website hosted on the Cochrane Collaboration website at www.cochraneequity.org. We have a fairly active set of tweets as well, and all of our tools and resources are available on the website. When we registered, our intention was to think about how to apply an equity lens to all Campbell and Cochrane reviews, and encourage authors of systematic reviews to also consider the importance of equity for their questions and their reviews, and to think about how that might influence how they design the systematic review and plan the questions and the analysis of the review. And when we think about health inequity, what we're thinking about is to break away from averages and to explore the distribution of effects of programs and policies. And we think about health equity with a moral and ethical lens. We're thinking about differences which are unnecessary, avoidable, but also considered unfair and unjust, using a definition by Margaret Whitehead. Health equity has achieved a lot of significance in national and international policy, especially since the WHO Commission on Social Determinants of Health, that really we have the tools to build the evidence base about health equity and equity in other outcomes such as education and employment, and we can do it. So when we think about equity, it's not just socioeconomic status. With the Campbell-Cochrane Equity Methods Group, we have developed an acronym to think about more than just socioeconomic status or poverty when thinking about equity. And these include factors like place of residence, ethnicity, occupation, gender, religion, education, socioeconomic status, as well as social capital. But in addition to this, other characteristics are associated with differences in effectiveness of programs and policies. As I'm sure many of you are aware, And one of those is disability and also age. Um, and there are also situations when people may be more vulnerable to experiencing inequitable outcomes. And some of those are also associated with disability. Things like being recovering from an injury, being discharged from a hospital. So, taking the work of our group and applying it to people with disabilities, there are four things that people doing systematic reviews might think about considering. The first is really partnership and engagement with organizations and people with disabilities. So including these kinds of organizations as advisors or stakeholders is one way to think about the relevance of the questions to those stakeholders and organizations, and also to people with disabilities who can provide really important information about designing a systematic review question. So involving consumers within the Cochrane collaboration and the Campbell collaboration is one way to think about the importance of outcomes, for example, which outcomes are the most important for people with disabilities, such as employment and social participation. And so that can really inform the question formulation and how you design which are the most important outcomes. The third thing is thinking about how we assess effectiveness and whether there are differences, not just in the relative effects of programs and policies, but also the absolute effects. So if people with disabilities experience the outcome differently, then this may influence the effectiveness of the programs. And lastly, thinking about equity, and particularly people with disabilities, when we think about a systematic review, we want to always think about how to interpret the results in light of things like feasibility and acceptability, in some cases cost effectiveness. And when we think about people with disabilities, those kinds of pieces of information might be important to collect during the review process. So lastly, I'd like to invite people really to contact the Disability Coordinating Group of the Campbell Collaboration, which has a focus on systematic reviews of disability. The co-chairs are Oliver Wendt, Joanne Starks, and the editor is Carlton Fong, who is a longtime member of the Campbell Collaboration. And the managing editor, Anne Williams Outlaw, who is coordinating this series of webcasts and is also very happy to answer questions about the Disability Coordinating Group. And lastly, our website has tools which we've developed to think about equity in systematic reviews, such as an equity checklist for planning a review, and an equity reporting guideline for reporting the results of your systematic reviews. And we also really invite authors to contact us for more information about our group or any support in using those tools.
Well, thank you very much, Vivian, and thank you everyone for attending this first webcast in our three-part series. After you've viewed all three webcasts in the series, I encourage everyone to fill out an evaluation form, following the link at the bottom of this slide. We will email it to all of you who registered, and you'll also be able to find this link on our webcast information page at ktdrr.org. This evaluation helps us to plan our future events, and you can also ask your questions to the presenters and include your email address if you'd like them to get back to you with the answers to those questions. Before we close, I'd like to thank the National Institute on Disability, Independent Living, and Rehabilitation Research, or NIDLR, for providing funding for today's webcast. And we look forward to your participation in the next webcast in this series, which is on using the Messier standards, which are the methodological expectations for Campbell collaboration systematic reviews. And this will be presented by Julia Littell. So thank you everyone for attending today's webcast, and we look forward to your participation in our next event.